2 Samuel 22. David sang to the Lord the words of this song when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation. He is my stronghold, my refuge, and my Savior. From violent people you save me. I called to the Lord, who is worthy of praise, and have been saved from my enemies. The waves of death swirled about me, the torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called to the Lord, I called out to my God. From his temple he heard my voice, my cry came to his ears. The earth trembled and quaked, the fountains of the heavens shook, they trembled because he was angry. Smoke rose from his nostrils, consuming fire came from his mouth, burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down, dark clouds were under his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his canopy around him, the dark rain clouds of the sky. Out of the brightness of his presence, bolts of lightning blazed forth. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded. He shot his arrows and scattered the enemy. With great bolts of lightning he routed them. The valleys of the sea were exposed, and the foundations of the earth laid bare at the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast of the breath from his nostrils. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes who were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my disaster, but the Lord was my support. He brought me into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord has dealt with me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands he has rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord. I am not guilty of turning from my God. All his laws are before me. I have not turned away from his decrees. I have been blameless before him and have kept myself from sin. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sight. To the faithful you show yourself faithful. To the blameless you show yourself blameless. To the pure you show yourself pure. But to the devious you show yourself shrewd. You save the humble, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them low. You, Lord, are my lamp. The Lord turns my darkness into light. With your help I can advance against a troop. With my God I can scale a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. He shields all who take refuge in him. For who is God besides the Lord? And who is the rock except our God? It is God who arms me with strength and keeps my way secure. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He causes me to stand on the heights. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You make your saving help my shield. Your help has made me great. You provide a broad path for my feet so that my ankles do not give way. I pursued my enemies and crushed them. I did not turn back till they were destroyed. I crushed them completely and they could not rise. They fell beneath my feet. You armed me with strength for battle. You humbled my adversaries before me. You made my enemies turn their backs in flight, and I destroyed my foes. They cried for help, but there was no one to save them. To the Lord, but he did not answer. I beat them as fine as the dust of the earth. I pounded and trampled them like mud in the streets. You have delivered me from the attacks of the peoples. You have preserved me as the head of nations. People I did not know now serve me. Foreigners cower before me. As soon as they hear of me, they obey me. They all lose heart. They come trembling from their strongholds. The Lord lives. Praise be to my rock. Exalted be my God, the rock, my Savior. He is the God who avenges me, who puts nations under me, who sets me free from my enemies. You exalted me above my foes. From a violent man you rescued me. Therefore, I will praise you, Lord, among the nations. I will sing the praises of your name. He gives his king great victories. He shows unfailing kindness to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. I realize you don't know this, but earlier today, this is the thing that God, when I got up to do my journaling, this is what he was calling me to. I was writing about things that have been done to me in my life and the unfairness, frankly, the unfairness of things that I've experienced at the hands of human beings. And what he led me to do this morning was to write about those experiences, what happened, what was going on, and to write about how Jesus responded to things like that. I'm not talking about, and I'm really being careful not to say what would Jesus do, because I think that that is so superficial. It's not about just a series of behaviors. You're not going to be saved by a series of behaviors. You're going to be saved by what is where? In your heart. So what he was doing was he was causing me to conform to Jesus' ways in my heart, not just engage in behaviors. So when you're considering what Jesus would do, I really encourage you to say, and what would be going on in his heart, that needs to be in my heart. So this really started out as a practice of, how do I forgive? Once again, how do I forgive? Truly from my heart. But there were these different aspects of these experiences that I was processing with God, writing about the unfairness. I mean, there have been a lot of really unfair things that have happened in my life. I have a sister who is really not well, who is very spiritually attacked, and I worry for her all the time. But the way that we were raised, we were pit against each other, not just by my dad, but by my stepmother, while she and her family just continue to go on experiencing no consequences. And me and my siblings are just splattered out there in the wind somewhere. I can't even have a conversation with my poor sister because my dad and stepmom thought it was a good idea to take her away from my mom as a baby. And they didn't have any interest in caring for her. They didn't have any interest in taking care of her. So she is really suffering and very incapable of having conversations with me. And it breaks my heart. So that's just a piece of what I was processing this morning. I don't really want to go into it because it's not the point of slandering anyone or even processing those things with you. I process them with God, but those things are unfair, guys. It's not fair that the mother I was kept from is dead, that I never had that opportunity to have with my own mother. And yet all of these things are in God's hands. They're in his hands. And to be honest, as I was writing, I realized I would not trade being them for 1 second. And I was reminded that those who are first are going to be last, and those who are last are going to be first. Well, not all of them. Many who are last will be first, and many who are first will be last. I would not trade living an honest life and saving my soul over my face for the fate of one who breathes out lies, for the fate of one who, when backed into a corner, that's what comes out of their heart. I wouldn't trade that for a second. Or for one who goes around slandering people in order to justify themselves. You see what I'm saying? These things are really unfair. And these things are things that I was processing this morning. And turning my heart to what did Jesus do and what had to be going on in his heart? What did he know? What did he understand? What was the truth inside of him that caused him to behave in those ways? Because you don't behave your way into truth. You believe and trust in truth, and then that comes out of your behavior. So to be honest, I was actually looking for passages in the Word on submission, and in the King James Version, the word here for serve in the NIV version is submission in the King James Version. And when I read that line, verse 45, strangers shall submit themselves unto me as soon as they hear. They shall be obedient unto me. I immediately thought of Jesus. I thought that it was referring to Jesus, and it could still be referring to Jesus. Although this is really, this is David's song of praise. But you know how the Psalms go. Oftentimes they're also referring to Jesus. But I saw that and actually thought of him, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Strangers, people he has not, who have not known him, and he has not known. I mean, obviously he knows who he created, but he says in the word, I have not known you. Strangers shall submit themselves unto me. As soon as they hear, they shall be obedient unto me. And I thought, yes, that's exactly what happened. I didn't know you, and the minute I heard you, I have not looked back. And the thing that came out of my mouth, even though I'm sitting here by myself and often talk to myself, when I read that, I went, ooh, I love that. And I went to the whole passage. So I know that you don't know that. You don't know why I'm reading it. But that whole passage, that whole 2 Samuel chapter 22 is such validation and affirmation directly from God of his faithfulness. I spent all morning writing down these injustices that he was raising in my heart and rending my heart to righteousness and to what he wants. And this is what he did. He gave me 2 Samuel chapter 22 to encourage me that he is faithful, that no one's going to get away with what they've done to his people, his anointed. No one's getting away with it, guys. People are going to know what they've been given. They're going to know who they've been, and they are going to be terrorized. God says it. He says, that he will make them so afraid that a wind-blown leaf is going to put them into flight. Do you know what that's like? Because I remember what it was like when I was evil. I remember being terrorized every minute when God handed me over for the destruction of my flesh so that I would finally submit to him. It was awful. And no one could figure out what was going on with me. I thought I was in early menopause. It was terrorizing. I would wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes several times in the night, in sweats, with heart palpitations, just afraid of everything. It's called the spirit of fear. And God's people don't have that. God's people don't do these evil things like lying because they don't have that spirit of fear. They have a feeling of fear that is part of their design and alerts them to return to God. God's people don't breathe out lies. They don't breathe out slander. They don't cower when they're being called to account. That is not the fruit of God's people. I'm telling you right now, if that's what you're doing, you are counterfeit and you need to return to God. And you need to not love your face so much that you would be so stupid to forsake your soul. Please listen to the things that I'm saying and take them up with God. Ask him. If it's a hard message, I understand. He has me speak a lot of very difficult things, but you have to at least love him enough to take the message to him and ask him to minister it to you. Please discern with God.